And we're back with another episode to give you some betting because we got some crazy fights on deck this weekend. Of course, we're going to be talking about the biggest one, David Benavidez and Caleb Plant. But Brian, there is another fight that's going under the radar that's really good. Jose Ramirez and Richard Comey. It's happening as well on the same day. I think the main event actually is going to be a little bit before Benavidez and Plant, but I mean, this is a pretty good card on Top Rank as well. Sinisa Estrada fighting as well. Jam-packed weekend of fighting.
Yeah, if you want to bet Sinisa Estrada on the money line, she's minus 1,800 favorite. If you're interested in that, probably going to whoop this other woman's ass. It's a unification for the minimum weight title. We're going to get to Caleb Plant, David Benavidez in a second. I just want to point this out. If you want to bet Sinisa Estrada on the money line, she'll probably win by decision, but let's just go with the bid here, right? $50,000 wager, you can win $2,777. So you basically walk away with 52,700, whatever, if that math is correct. So yeah, unless you're rich, I would recommend throwing that in a parlay instead of betting it straight up. Other than that, look, there are some interesting bets on the undercard, like Chris Colbert, Jose Valenzuela. And a lot of people are taking Jose Valenzuela.
I am.
A lot of people are doing that. Chris Colbert was no joke, like a 3-1 favorite, and now he's down to like minus 130 at the time we're recording this, which makes me feel like by the time we put this out, it might be even odds straight up. Lawrence Okolie versus David Light. He's been a massive favorite the entire time. Lawrence Okolie. He's also going back and forth with Eddie Hearn. Yeah, I mean, look, and Jose Ramirez, Richard Comey. But most of the time will be spent on David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant. That is the fight of the weekend. It is a pay-per-view for boxing fans. I don't know how much it'll be a pay-per-view for casuals. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let's do it, Shantelle. Money be green.
Yeah, let's make some paper.
Yeah, let's do it.
Like money, motherfucker? Money be green. Money feel like money. That shit look green to you?
All right, so we're going to give you a full breakdown of this fight because I think it's a really, really big fight, Brian. Possibly the biggest fight so far this year. David Benavidez and Caleb Plant. I think this is a 50-50 fight if you really look at it. And at one point, I was leaning one way, started leaning another way. That's how close I think this fight could possibly be. What are your thoughts on this fight? And you mentioned pay-per-view. Is it a pay-per-view fight?
Yeah, because we were talking about this, right? I think for boxing fans, it's absolutely a pay-per-view. And we ran a poll on our YouTube channel. Obviously, subscribe to TheMandatory with Bryan and Shantelle on YouTube to help us grow the page. We're trying to do things the right way. We're just trying to put out a good show and a good product, all right? We're not trying to fucking start some bullshit and be fanboys for any fighters or whatever the case may be. And I guess fangirl in one case. We're just trying to put out a good show and be responsible, both media-wise, journalistically, and all that good stuff, and give the fans, you, a good product. So please support what we're doing because we're going to be doing it consistently. And with your support, we'll be able to do that. So as far as this fight goes, yeah, we ran a poll. More people seem to think that this is a pay-per-view fight than not. I do think that this is a boxing fans pay-per-view, right? Like if you're a boxing fan, this is absolutely a card, not just a fight, card that you'll want to pay for, because Jesus Ramos versus Joey Spencer, like on the undercard, that is a really interesting fight. Chris Colbert on the main card, I should say, but you get what I'm saying. Chris Colbert, Jose Valenzuela, that's a really interesting fight. That a lot of people that I've spoken to seem to think Chris Colbert's going to lose, which is interesting. Interesting pivot from where we were at this point with Chris Colbert prior to his fight against Hector Luis Garcia. We have not seen him since. And ultimately, I think with this main event, is it a pay-per-view in terms of, because for me, a pay-per-view has to cross over. David Benavidez was on First Take. So that's good. He was on First Take talking to Stephen A. Smith, who knows less boxing than he lets on, because I don't think he has.
That's when we need Max on there, man. I miss Max on there like crazy.
I just don't think, and I'm not even using it as this, I just don't think he has time to follow it as closely. But I think this is a fight like Stephen A. Like this is a fight that he's going to watch. I think there are casual fans who are going to watch this, but I wonder how many of my casual boxing friends are going to tune in and watch this, right? So I have questions as to how far this pay-per-view will reach, beyond the boxing sphere. But for boxing diehards and boxing fans, this is absolutely a pay-per-view fight. I don't know if it is beyond that though, and I think that's okay, right? Like I think fights that are beyond that, like Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, I think can transcend in that way. Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis clearly will. I think at the build up to it. Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez, back when they did those couple fights. The third one even I think crossed over as well. Like you get a few of those every year. I don't think this is one of those, but I think this is a fight of the year contender. This is a great fight on paper. As you said, it's damn close to a 50-50 fight. And I think for boxing fans, this is absolutely something that you can't miss, right? So I guess there's your fucking free plug, Showtime. You're welcome. As far as the actual fight, though, I mean, where are you at with this? Because I was leaning a bunch of different ways on this. I feel like I've made up my mind, and we're going to get to that when we get to our best bets in a second. But for me, the question is Caleb Plant going to be able to keep David Benavidez off of him? Is he going to be active enough? Is his jab going to be effective enough to keep one of the best pressure fighters in the world, who, if he's focused and if he makes weight, because we have to have some questions about David Benavidez.
Yeah.
Like, is Caleb Plant going to be able to put it all together and do that? Or is the pressure going to be overwhelming? And despite perhaps getting off to a good start, is he going to gas out late, as other people, I think Benavidez himself included, have accused Caleb Plant of doing in fights like he did against Canelo Alvarez?
Well, yeah, you mentioned it right there, right? He gassed out in the 11th round against Canelo Alvarez. We all saw it, but I also think you could argue that he fought Canelo Alvarez the best than anyone else has fought him. Caleb Plant fought him very, very well. There's a lot to say about him.
You mean outside of like Floyd and
well,
Floyd
beat him, right?
Yeah,
I'm talking about his losses.
I would still say Erislandy Lara, but that's
you could say that might have been a robbery,
or Golovkin also, but like in recent fights, to your point.
Yeah, because I think going into those fights, Gennady Golovkin, a lot of people were picking him to beat Canelo. I think in the fight with Caleb Plant, I don't know a lot of people that were taking Caleb Plant over Canelo Alvarez at that time.
Yeah.
I think he really was impressive in that fight, even though he lost that fight. Now, going back to his last fight, impressive knockout against a guy like Anthony Dirrell. And keep in mind that David Benavidez also fought Anthony Dirrell, but 3 years ago. So he fought a better version of Anthony Dirrell than, let's say, Caleb Plant did. So I'm taking a look at these two guys, and stylistically, I think it's a really good matchup. We always talk about how David Benavidez is the stronger guy, right? The bigger guy. He's a pressure fighter. He has power. And he also, I think a lot of people sleep on David Benavidez's speed, because once he gets into a rhythm, he has speed. Because when you talk about Caleb Plant, everyone's talking about his speed, and we know they call him Sweet Hands Plant for a reason. But stylistically, I think this is a pretty even matchup. That's why I say it's a 50-50 fight. Now, you talked about the things that David Benavidez has kind of been through, right? He's a 2-time champ, but he ended up losing those belts. Once for cocaine use, recreational use, as they were saying. And then also he missed his weight against Alexis Angulo. And so he had to give up those titles. So this is a fight where we know that David Benavidez has that championship pedigree, and we know that Caleb Plant has it as well. When I think about Caleb Plant, the one fight that I always go to that I think was an absolute dub was the one against Caleb Truax. A fight where I was like, yo, he could have got him out of there. Why did he not knock him out? But I think as of late, we've seen a different Caleb Plant, so I don't want to sleep on him going into this fight. And I actually don't think people should sleep on him at all, because Caleb Plant, his one loss is Canelo Alvarez. Like, if you're going to have one loss on your record, you might as well have it be Canelo Alvarez. Nice right hand, filthy left hook. We talked about his speed. He has a really nice jab, and he's going to outbox you. He has that skill. Is he going to be able to have his endurance be up in that 11th round, in that 12th round? Because David Benavidez, 26-0, 23 of those wins coming by way of knockout. We know that he has this power. I don't think it's this type of power that's absolutely deadly, but he breaks you down. That's what he does. He breaks you down. He has explosive hand speed. He's relentless, right? The thing about David Benavidez, though, he also has been dropped before.
That's
He's been
I thought about this too when I was making my pick.
Yeah, he's been dropped before, so I do think he has a good chin. I don't know if it's like a chin of steel because he's been dropped before, and that's why this fight is so interesting. And the winner of this fight is either gonna chase Canelo or Canelo's gonna have to vacate his titles. Right? That's possibly what's going to happen in this one. So going into this fight, David Benavidez, he's a minus 300. Caleb Plant is a plus 220 on the money line straight up. And I think if you're going to take David Benavidez, you want there to be some value. I'm going to roll with David Benavidez in this fight. And what I'm going to do is I actually went to the group round betting because I think there's some value there
My
as well.
favorite. This is what I always
Yes.
do when I think it's going to be a knockout. Yes.
Yes. And the thing is, I think Caleb Plant has a really, really good chance to win this fight. So I think if you want to sprinkle on that plus 220 on the money line, which I think I might because it's a 50-50 bet. I don't want to like hedge bet here, but I think I might sprinkle on that because I think he has a chance, like a very small amount. I might like bet like $5 on it or something like that. I'm okay with sprinkling on that. But I'm gonna take David Benavidez to win. And I went to round betting. And if you bet on him in group round betting between rounds 10 through 12, it's a plus 420. So I have David Benavidez winning in rounds 10 through 12, and there's a plus 420 there, which of course has some value. So that's who I'm rolling with in this one, Brian. I think stylistically, it's a great fight. I think Caleb Plant is going to give him some problems, but I think in the end, David Benavidez, what we've seen from him, this guy is way too good, pressure fighter, and I think Caleb Plant might gas out near the end like we've seen him do. What about you? How do you see this one going?
I thought the beginning of the Canelo fight was close to even, right? With Caleb Plant, probably those first 6 rounds, he won 2, maybe 3 of them. The judging also reflects that. And then later on, Canelo, as he did against Sergey Kovalev, as he's done against so many others, just sort of breaks you down over the course of a fight and then got the stoppage late. But again, it's Canelo Alvarez. I think in looking at this fight, so the beginning of it, like my knee-jerk reaction was, okay, David Benavidez probably wins this. I then sat and thought about it, and I was like, all right, Caleb Plant actually is the better all-around boxer here, I would say, in terms of style. Or at least is more of my somebody who I think can really pick somebody apart over the course of a fight. Not sure he could do that against David Benavidez because David Benavidez is an incredible pressure fighter. Stays on you, has great stamina, has a good enough chin. Even though he's been knocked down, as you mentioned, he's also gotten up, finished the fight, won it. Like that says something to me in terms of like the character you can have in the ring. And he's also very, very accurate when he's really getting on a roll, getting in a rhythm. And I'm not sure Caleb Plant is going to be active enough to keep Benavidez off of him. But I think if Caleb Plant wins the fight, you're probably looking at a Caleb Plant decision. And if you're somebody who thinks, and we ran a poll on this on our channel, and it was damn near 50-50, though now I think more votes came in on Benavidez at the time we're recording this. But Caleb Plant to win on the money line is good value alone, plus 220. If you're looking at it on points, I've seen it at like plus 400 or in that area, or whatever the case may be. I've seen David Benavidez by knockout just straight up like minus 170, minus 150, whatever.
No value there, I feel.
Yeah, or like some, but like not a tremendous amount. And the over-under also is 9.5 rounds, which I think is perfect. It's minus 112 either way. So whatever, right? I actually think that for me, this is the bet I was looking for. Group round betting as well, except I'm going David Benavidez rounds 9 through 12 to stop Caleb Plant because I think he could do it in the 9th round. I was waiting for the 4 instead of the 3 rounds. So that's plus 270. There's still great odds there. But I think Caleb Plant is absolutely good enough to win this fight. And I think like this is one of those fights where I'm also paying attention to the weigh-in because, you know, David Benavidez has missed weight before. Like maybe he looks drained. Maybe Caleb Plant, like he found something in that Anthony Durrell fight that he could sort of channel here, much different opponent, but you guys probably get what I'm saying. I think Caleb Plant is absolutely good enough to win this fight. But if I had to make a single pick, I just feel more confident in David Benavidez getting the stoppage from 9 through 12 than I do Caleb Plant on points, which would be my hedge if I made one, which I probably will because they're both plus odds bets. But ultimately, like that's how I'm leaning. No disrespect to Caleb Plant or anybody who thinks he's going to win because I think he can absolutely win this fight. I'll say that a third time. But I lean ever so slightly toward David Benavidez getting the late stoppage here. And if I'm wrong, whatever. The analysis was fine. Like the analysis was well thought out. So I'm not out here doing some hot takey bullshit. Shantelle, go ahead, close us out.
The only thing that I was going to say about it, because we talk about Caleb Plant, how we're not going to sleep on him, is also the fact that who is David Benavidez's best win? Anthony Durrell?
Probably.
It would have to be Anthony Durrell, because when you take a look at his resume, I think Caleb Plant is obviously going to have the better resume because he's been in the ring with Canelo Alvarez. And you got to give him props for that one. And he also ended up knocking out Anthony Durrell. So I give him the edge, but at the same time, like David Benavidez, bodied the Canadian David Lemieux, Ronald Ellis. No, but I have respect for David Lemieux for sure. For sure. Yeah. He's Canadian. Got to go for my Canadian guys. You know what I mean? Kyron Davis. So the thing is, David Benavidez is out here, and the way that he finishes, he's a great finisher, man. Breaks you down mentally. And there's always been that talk. What is better? Is it breaking someone down mentally, or is it that like one punch knockout power? They're both deadly. They're both bad, right? But
there are some guys who could do both, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So here on the mandatory, we want to know who you're rolling with on this fight. I believe Bryan has taken David Benavidez rounds 9 through 12. And what did you say? What did you say the odds were?
Plus 270 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I'm not sure that bet is available yet. If it is, it's probably going to be in that same territory.
All right, and I'm taking David Benavidez rounds 10 through 12, and that's a plus 420. So lots of value there. But if you do want to sprinkle on Caleb Plant and you're rolling with Caleb Plant for this one, let us know. Drop some comments and let us know how you're going to bet.
Last time we were with Subriel Matias and Jeremias Ponce to that degree where we picked the exact knockout round range. That was great. So hopefully that happens again with David Benavidez here.
I think we have a pretty good chance. And going back to that fight, well, I would not be surprised if Caleb Plant was able to get the victory. And
me neither.
I wouldn't be at all. So that's why this is such a big fight. And going back to, should it be on pay-per-view? Because I want you to comment if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, is it a pay-per-view fight? Because I think if it wasn't, it'd be really good for boxing. I think if it wasn't a pay-per-view fight, I think it could be really, really good for boxing. And I think that's the one thing that boxing needs is we need fights like this that shouldn't be on pay-per-view because it's a really big, massive fight. But at the same time, if you're, I guess, not a casual, if you are a casual, you might not feel the same way we feel about it.
You might not want to pay for it. And you'll probably ask around for a link. Let's be fair. Most people who watch this are probably going to be asking around for a link because that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's also going to be going up against March Madness, and it's going to be going up against the NBA and the NHL and people who are
one's watching the NHL, Bryan. Okay, no, the numbers tell you that as well.
It's just the Canadian.
So poor. They're doing so poor on ESPN and TNT. Okay. I would watch this fight over everything that you just mentioned, though.
Me too.
Right.
But to your point, I do wonder, like, what if this was a PBC on Fox card, right? Just straight up.
That would be dope as well.
Not even a pay-per-view at all. Like, I wish in general boxing would tone down the amount of pay-per-views. I don't feel like the amount of pay-per-views we get are necessary. I do feel like, what happened to, I thought network TV is back and pay-per-view is dead, and we went right back to pay-per-view.
I mean, in hindsight, I did really appreciate Devin Haney and George Kambosos Jr. not being on pay-per-view. That's a fight that wasn't a pay-per-view fight, and we were able to just
probably
watch
easier to do on ESPN, to be fair, but still.
Yeah, but I think this is one of those fights where it's like, man, I wish it was just one of those fights we were able to see for boxing fans, because I think if you're just a casual or if you're just getting into the sport, like just watching fights here and there, this is a fight that can make you a big fan. Because I think this is one of those fights. We're going to talk about Tank and Ryan. We know how big that fight's going to be. If we end up getting Usyk and Fury, we're going to be talking about that. If we end up getting Spence and Thurman or something like that, I think those are all going to be really good fights. But I think this might be one of the fights of the year.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And has a great main card as well. Like the card itself, as we mentioned, as we touched on at the top. Joey Spencer, Jesus Ramos, Chris Colbert, Jose Valenzuela. There's more that I'm forgetting, but like it's a great card all around. Cody Crowley, you know what I mean, is fighting on the card. Your Canadian brother, I guess.
My
So
brethren, yes.
yes,
Let's
yeah, we'll
go,
see.
Cody.
Even though you're from like California, but like we could address like that another day. But yeah,
But yes,
we're good here, I think.
I gotta support the Canadians, but the mandatory would love to know how you're gonna be betting this weekend. Let us know also if you like the content, if you like the video, make sure to hit that like button on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening wherever you stream this, make sure to subscribe to our show. And if you have a couple of quick minutes, leave a rate and review. All it takes is one.